July Don't Forgive in West Texas. The heat of 1878 was the kind that killed cattle and broke men's spirits slow. Jake Thornhill heard the buzzards before he saw them, circling lazy near his property line where the old riverbed cut through dried alkali flats. He nudged his mare closer. The smell hit him first, dust and leather gone rotten in sun. Then he saw her, a woman, collapsed at the abandoned well, blue dress faded to the color of dirty sky. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. An empty canteen lay beside her, price tag still attached. $1.35, never been filled. But it was the tin dipper that stopped Jake's heart. Hanging 6 feet away on its hook, catching sunlight like a piece of mockery. Just out of reach. Deliberately. The woman's hand clutched a letter sealed with wax. Jake dismounted, knelt in the dust, turned her face toward him. Still breathing, barely, he reached for the letter. The address was clear despite her grip, J. Thornhill, Thornhill Ranch. Jake Thornhill never wrote to no bride. Jake lifted her, dead weight, all bone and dehydration. The woman's dress crackled like old paper where sweat and dust had turned the fabric stiff. He draped her across his saddle, climbed up behind, held her steady with one arm. The mare knew the way home. 3 miles of nothing but scrub brush and heat shimmer. Jake counted the woman's breaths, shallow, slow, each one a small miracle she didn't deserve to waste. His ranch appeared through the haze, weathered timber, sagging barn, windmill creaking its endless complaint. The well, his well, the only one working for 40 miles. Near as he could figure, his children were in the yard. Sam, 11 years old, chopping kindling with the focus of a boy trying to be a man. Mary, 8, hanging wash that would be bone dry in an hour. They stopped when they saw him, saw her. "Papa?" Mary's voice carried high and uncertain. Jake didn't answer. Just dismounted, carried the woman through the door his late wife used to scrub clean every Saturday. The hinges groaned. Everything in this house groaned with memory. He laid her by the fireplace. No fire needed, heat enough already, but it was the softest spot, where Rebecca used to sit and sew, where she'd sat the night the baby came wrong and took her with it. Sam stood in the doorway, blocking light. His shadow fell across the stranger's face. "Who is she?" Voice flat. Accusation built into the question. "Don't know yet." Jake pulled a blanket from the chest. Wool, smelling of cedar and moth powder, covered her to the chin. "Fetch water, 2 buckets. We're low." Sam didn't move. "I know what we are. Fetch it anyway." The boy left. His boots hit the floor hard enough to make a point. Mary crept closer, curious as a cat. She knelt beside the woman, studied her face with the careful attention children give to broken things. "Is she gonna die, Papa?" "Not if I can help it." "She's pretty." Mary touched the woman's hand. Drew back. "She's so hot." Jake knew. He'd felt it carrying her. Fever from the inside, sun from the out. The human body's got limits. This woman had found hers and kept breathing anyway. That took a particular kind of stubborn. Sam returned with the buckets, set them down too hard. Water sloshed. Jake dipped his hands, wiped the woman's face. Dust came away in streaks, revealing pale skin underneath. City skin. She wasn't from here. Wasn't from anywhere that taught you how to survive. He reached for the tin dipper, hanging by the water barrel. His father's dipper. Dented, worn smooth by 3 generations of calloused hands, the handle fit his palm like prayer, filled it, lifted her head gentle as he could. "Easy now," he said, though she couldn't hear him. "Easy." Water touched her lips. She choked, coughed, her eyes open, gray as storm clouds, wild with panic. Jake held steady. "You're safe." She tried to speak. Nothing came but a rasp like wind through dead grass. Her throat was ruined. 3 days without water does that. He offered the dipper again. This time she drank. Small sips. Her hands came up, shaking, guided the dipper to her mouth. The cool metal against her lips seemed to anchor her. She drank until the dipper was empty. Then she saw the children. Her eyes went wide, looked at Jake, back to them. Understanding came slow, confused. Mary smiled. "I'm Mary. That's Sam. He's grumpy, but he's nice, really." "Sometimes," Sam muttered. The woman tried again to speak. Failed. Frustration crossed her face. She had things to say, and no voice to say them. Her hand went to her chest, felt for something. The letter, still clutched tight even now. She held it out to Jake. He took it, broke the wax seal, unfolded paper that crackled in the dry air. Advertisement for mail-order bride. Seeking woman of good character for frontier marriage. Room, board, and security provided. Send photograph and passage fee, $85 to J. Thornhill, Thornhill Ranch, water rights holder, Redemption Flats, Texas. Jake read it twice. The words didn't change. "I didn't write this," he said. The woman stared at him. Her lips moved, soundless. Then she did something that made Jake's blood go cold. She pointed at the letter still in his hand. Pointed at Jake. Pointed at the door, she'd never walked through. The woman, Ellie, the letter called her, Eleanor Wade of Boston, stayed 3 days before her voice came back. It arrived in pieces, a whisper, a rasp, words that cost her pain to shape. She told it plain. No embellishment, paid $85, every cent she had. Answered an advertisement in the Matrimonial Times. A Mr. J. Thornhill sought a bride. Wrote her back on fine paper, said he had land and water and a future worth building. She took the train to Dallas, the stage to Redemption Flats. A man met her at the station, said he worked for Thornhill, drove her in a wagon, said the ranch was a ways out, kept driving past town, past the last homestead, all the way to the dried riverbed. Stopped at the well, told her to wait. He'd fetch Mr. Thornhill. Never came back. She waited. Drank her canteen dry the first day. The second day she tried to walk. Made it a mile before her legs quit. Crawled back to the well. The dipper was right there. But she couldn't reach it. Couldn't stand. The third day she stopped counting hours. Jake listened. His jaw worked. Fury settled in his chest, cold and controlled. Describe the man. Ellie's voice cracked. Thin. Mustache. Spoke educated. Called himself. She coughed. Tried again. Called himself Mr. Pritchard's man. Sam, listening from the loft, went still. Jake knew that name. Everyone in 3 counties knew that name. We're going to town, he said. Redemption Flats baked under noon sun. Main Street was 4 blocks of false front buildings trying to look bigger than they were. The general store, the bank, Dutch Cooper's smithy, the church with its ambitious steeple pointing at God like an accusation. Jake rode in with Ellie beside him, Sam and Mary behind. Every head turned. The storekeeper's wife, Mrs. Hoffman, was sweeping her porch. She saw Ellie, stopped mid-stroke, went inside, shut the door. Jake felt it, the judgment, the gossip starting its ugly work. He tied the horses at the general store, helped Ellie down. She moved careful, still weak. Mary took her hand without asking. The store bell chimed. Inside, smelled like sawdust and coffee and the particular staleness of goods that sat too long. Mr. Hoffman stood behind the counter, didn't smile. Jake. A nod. His eyes cut to Ellie. Ma'am. Need supplies, Jake said. What for? Coffee, salt. Hoffman started gathering items. His movements were stiff, wrong. The door opened behind them. Boot heels on wood, expensive boots. Jake Thornhill. The voice was smooth as snake oil. Heard you took in a traveler. Jake turned. Silas Pritchard stood in the doorway, blocking light. 38 years old and dressed like he'd just left church. Clean suit, oiled hair, smile that never touched his eyes. He owned the bank, owned half the foreclosed properties around Redemption Flats, owned the sheriff's salary, and probably his soul besides. News travels, Jake said. In a town this size? Pritchard's smile widened. News is all we got. He looked at Ellie. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, satisfaction. Ma'am, trust you're feeling better? Ellie's hand tightened on Mary's. Pritchard stepped closer. Unfortunate business, that mail order situation. Shame when arrangements fall through. Happens more than folks think. Women get cold feet, change their minds. Happens. Jake's fists clenched. She didn't change her mind. Of course not. Pritchard tipped his hat to Ellie. Just saying. Misunderstandings happen. Man places an advertisement. Woman shows up. Wires get crossed. He paused. You did place an advertisement, didn't you, Jake? The question hung there. Poisonous. No, Jake said. Pritchard's eyes glittered. Then it's quite the mystery. How a woman ends up with a letter addressed to you, traveling halfway across the country, expecting a husband. He turned to leave, stopped. Charitable of you, taking her in. Given your circumstances. The door closed behind him. The bell's chime sounded like mockery. Dutch Cooper found them an hour later. The blacksmith was 55, built like the iron he worked, with hands that could bend horseshoes and a heart that remembered debts. Jake's father had saved him from a hanging once. False charge, long story. Dutch didn't forget. He walked them back to his smithy. The forge was banked but still radiating heat. The smell of coal smoke and hot metal hung thick. His hammer rested on the anvil, tool of his trade, symbol of his honesty. Need to tell you something, Dutch said. He lit his pipe, drew slow. 2 other brides never made it to their destinations. Year before last. One in spring of '76, another that fall. Jake's gut twisted. What happened to them? Nobody knows, just gone. Folks figured they changed their minds. Went back east. Dutch's jaw worked. But, Jake, both men who were expecting them, both lost their land inside 6 months. Foreclosure. Bank took it. Pritchard's bank. Pritchard's bank. Ellie made a sound, small, broken. They turned to her. She pulled papers from her bodice, kept them close these 3 days, unfolded them with shaking hands. The advertisement. Letters. All signed J. Thornhill, in a neat, educated hand. Jake looked at his own signature on the supply receipt, rough, barely legible. The scrawl of a man who learned to write late and practiced little. The signature on Ellie's papers was nothing like his. Someone forged it, Jake said. The words tasted like ash. Someone used my name, brought her here to die. Dutch's face went hard. Question is why? But Jake already knew. The well, his land, the only water for 40 miles. Pritchard had been sniffing around for 2 years, making offers Jake refused, a dead bride. No family to ask questions. A man with a suspicious mail-order scheme. Easy enough to build a scandal. Easy enough to foreclose when reputation died along with credit. Ellie's gray eyes met his. In them he saw the same understanding, the same cold fury. They'd both been played. She was supposed to die. He was supposed to be ruined. Somebody made a mistake, though. They left her close enough to his land that he'd find her. Left her alive. Now they'd both make Pritchard pay for that mistake. Dutch spent the next week digging. Not with his hands, with questions. With old survey maps yellowed at the edges and land deeds recorded in the county office 3 towns over. He spread them across Jake's kitchen table one evening after the children went to bed. Ellie sat with them, lamplight catching the hollow places in her cheeks. She was stronger now. Eating, voice coming back rough but serviceable. Look here. Dutch tapped the map. Your property. His thick finger moved. These 3 parcels next to you. I tested their wells today. Took my divining rod and my shovel. And? Jake leaned forward. Dry. All 3. Bone dry. You got the only working water source for 40 miles, near as I can figure. Dutch pulled out another paper. Deed records. All 3 of these parcels? Foreclosed in the last 2 years? Bank took them? Pritchard's bank, Ellie said. Her voice still rasped, but conviction ran through it like iron through rock. Pritchard's bank, Dutch confirmed. He laid out more deeds. Here's 6 more. Same story. Owner gets in trouble. Bank forecloses. Pritchard ends up with the land. He paused. 11 properties total. Every one of them had something in common. Jake already knew. Could feel it in his bones. Water rights. Water rights, Dutch said. Or proximity to your well. He's building a web, Jake, taking everything around you. When he finally gets your land, he'll control the only water for half the county. The blacksmith's pipe had gone out. He relit it, hands steady despite the anger in his voice. A man who controls water in a drought? That's power. That's money. That's every rancher for 50 miles paying whatever he asks. Ellie traced the map with her finger. The other brides, the ones who disappeared, were their intended husbands, owners of these properties. A Dutch pointed to 2 parcels. One here, both foreclosed after the women never arrived. Silence settled heavy. Outside, the windmill creaked its eternal complaint. The well pump squeaked, precious water rising from depths Pritchard wanted to own. Jake looked at Ellie. He left you to die to get to my land. He left me to die, she said slowly, because if I died, you'd look like a man who lured a woman to her death. Scandal, your credit ruined, bank calls your note. You can't pay, foreclosure. Her gray eyes held his. I was never supposed to be found alive. The weight of it pressed down like August heat, not just murder, calculation. A scheme that used women as disposable tools to break men's reputations and steal their future. Dutch stood. I'll keep digging, but Jake, you need to be careful. Pritchard's got the sheriff in his pocket. Got half the town council. This goes deep. After he left, Ellie stayed at the table. She'd been organizing her papers every night, every receipt, every letter. Kept them in neat stacks like she was building a case. Jake watched her. You always this thorough? My father died in debtor's prison. She didn't look up. They said he owed money, said he'd lost the paperwork proving payment. After he died, I found every receipt he'd ever been given. Found the proof. Too late. Her hands stilled. I learned then, you keep everything, every scrap, because men with power rewrite history if you let them. A smart woman, dangerous woman, the kind who survived. 3 days later, Mary screamed. Jake was fixing fence line when the sound cut through afternoon heat. He ran, dropped his tools and ran, found Mary in the yard, frozen, staring at the woodpile. A rattlesnake coiled there, 6 feet away. Its tail buzzed warning. The girl's face was white. Don't move, Jake said. Calm, even. Don't. The snake struck. Mary jerked back, not fast enough. Fangs caught her ankle. She went down screaming. Jake's rifle was in the house. Too far. He grabbed a shovel, moved between his daughter and the snake. It coiled again, ready. Ellie appeared from nowhere. She had the hoe from the garden. Moved fast, faster than a woman barely recovered should move. Brought the blade down clean. Took the snake's head off in one strike. Then she was kneeling beside Mary. Let me see. Papa, Mary sobbed. I know, baby, I know. Jake's hands shook. Snake bite. How long did they have? 20 minutes. 30? Ellie tore Mary's dress, exposed the bite. 2 puncture marks already swelling. She looked at Jake. You got yarrow? Whiskey? What? Yarrow. Wild herb. White flowers, feathery leaves. Grows by the creek bed. Creek's dry. The plants don't need much. They'll be there. Go. Now. Jake went. Found the yarrow growing stubborn in cracked earth. Grabbed handfuls. Ran back. Ellie had torn her own petticoat into strips. She took the yarrow. Crushed it between her palms. The smell was sharp, medicinal. Mixed it with whiskey from Jake's emergency bottle. Made a poultice. This will hurt, she told Mary. But it'll help. You trust me? Mary nodded, crying. Ellie pressed the poultice to the bite. Mary screamed. Ellie held firm, wrapped the wound tight with cloth strips. Her hands were steady. Sure. This wasn't guesswork. This was knowledge. Sam stood in the doorway. He'd been watching the whole thing. His face showed something new. Not resentment, something else. Where'd you learn that? He asked. My mother. Ellie kept working. She was a midwife. Poor folks' medicine. Learned what works when you can't afford doctors. Mary's breathing steadied. The swelling stopped spreading. Jake sat back. His heart hammered so hard he could hear it. You saved her. Maybe. Ellie wouldn't claim certainty. We'll watch her. Keep the poultice fresh. If the swelling goes down by morning, she'll be fine. That night, Mary slept in Jake's bed where he could watch her. Ellie stayed too, changing the poultice every 2 hours. Sam brought them coffee, sat with them. Near midnight, he spoke. My mama used to mend Papa's shirts. She'd sit right there. He pointed to the chair Ellie occupied. Used to hum while she worked. Ellie said nothing. You know how to mend? Sam asked. I'm a seamstress. Was. She met his eyes. I could, if you wanted. Sam left. Came back with Jake's work shirt. Torn at the shoulder. Been torn for months. He handed it to Ellie. She took it. Threaded a needle by lamplight. Her hands moved with the same certainty they'd shown with the poultice. Competence. Skill. Worth. Sam watched her work. After a while, he spoke again, quieter. Thank you, for Mary. Your sister's brave, Ellie said. Takes after her brother, I reckon. In the other room, Jake heard it. The first crack in his son's armor. The beginning of acceptance. But later, when Sam thought no one was watching, he went to his room. Pulled something from under his mattress. His mother's photograph? Stared at it until his eyes burned. Loving 2 women felt like betraying one. He hit it again, deeper this time. Sunday came hot and merciless. The church bell rang at 9, calling Redemption Flats to worship. Jake hadn't been inside that building since Rebecca's funeral. Figured God had heard enough from him by now. But Ellie wanted to go. Said she needed to show her face, show she wasn't hiding. They walked the 2 miles to town, dust coating their boots. Sam walked apart, keeping distance. Mary held Ellie's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. The church was white clapboard, paint peeling where the sun hit hardest. Inside smelled like old wood and sweat and the particular mustiness of hymn books held by too many hands. The pews were worn smooth. 40 people could fit. Today, 38 had come. They all turned when Jake's family entered. Mrs. Hoffman pulled her daughter closer. 2 ranchers, Jake had known for years, suddenly found their boots fascinating. The whispers started, low, mean, spreading like fire in dry grass. Jake guided Ellie to a pew near the back. Sam and Mary followed. The wood groaned under them. Reverend Williams stood at the pulpit, young man, ambitious. His collar was too tight and his certainty too loud. He opened his Bible, pages crackling in the silence. Today's sermon, he announced, voice carrying to the rafters, concerns the wickedness of Jezebel, the seductress who led good men astray, who used her feminine wiles to corrupt and destroy. Ellie's spine went rigid. Williams read with relish, painted Jezebel as every kind of evil, spoke of women who came from far places with false promises, who attached themselves to decent men and brought ruin. He never looked directly at Ellie. Didn't have to. Every word was a pointing finger. We must guard against such women, Williams intoned. We must protect our community from those who would use marriage as a weapon, who would prey upon widowers and their innocent children. Jake stood. The pew scraped loud against the floor. We're leaving, he said. 40 eyes watched them walk out. Only one person followed. Father Brennan, the circuit preacher, old and weather-beaten, who'd buried more folks than Williams had baptized. He caught Jake's arm outside, where the sun blazed and grasshoppers sang their dry song. Son, Brennan said. His voice was gravel and smoke. I got questions need asking. About 2 graves I dug in '76. 2 women, young, no family to claim them. Died of heat stroke, the sheriff said. Found in the desert. His eyes were sharp despite their age. Nobody asked me then why 2 brides died the same way in the same year, but I'm asking now. Jake met his gaze. You thinking what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, Brennan said slowly, that maybe I should have asked sooner. Maybe I wouldn't be bearing guilt along with bodies if I had. They made it home by noon. Jake was unhitching the horses when he heard riders coming. 3 of them. He knew the sound of Pritchard's gelding. High-stepping, expensive. Sam, Jake said quietly, take your sister inside. Papa. Now. The boy obeyed. Ellie stayed on the porch. She had a right. This concerned her too. Silas Pritchard rode up, flanked by Sheriff Yates and a clerk from the bank. Yates was 50, gone soft in the middle, with eyes that wouldn't hold a straight gaze. Man who'd sold his spine years back and still tried to walk upright. Pritchard dismounted. Dust puffed around his polished boots. He carried a leather case. Jake. Miss Wade. He tipped his hat. Official business, I'm afraid. Sheriff Yates is here as witness. Jake's jaw clenched. State your business. Pritchard opened the case, drew out papers. 3 documents, each sealed with the county stamp. He laid them on the porch rail, where Ellie could see. First, Pritchard said, voice smooth as altar wine. Notice of foreclosure acceleration. Your note with the bank is being called. Payment in full due within 30 days. Jake's heart kicked. My note's not due for 8 months. Was. Before you engaged in conduct detrimental to the moral standing of the bank's interests. Pritchard smiled. Housing an unmarried woman of questionable character constitutes breach of the morality clause. Section 12, subsection 4. Bank has the right to call the note. Ellie made a sound. Small. Trapped. Second document. Pritchard laid another paper down. Challenge to your water rights deed. Miss Wade's passage was paid through advertisement bearing your name and mentioning your water rights. Specifically, she's owed compensation for false representation. Sum of $85 plus interest at 49% over 6 months. Total, $127. Defaulting on that debt creates lien against the property. I never wrote that advertisement, Jake said through gritted teeth. Can you prove it? Pritchard's eyebrows raised. Because I have the original document, filed with the Matrimonial Times. Your signature, your specific mention of water rights. He paused. Looks like you used marriage to commit fraud, Jake. Lured a woman here under false pretenses. That's a crime. The trap closed like jaws. If Jake denied writing it, Ellie was abandoned without recourse. But he kept his land. If he claimed responsibility, he'd committed fraud and lost everything. Either way, Pritchard won. Third document. The final paper. Lien against property for abandoned contract obligations. Miss Wade traveled considerable distance based on your written promise. She's entitled to compensation for emotional distress and ruined reputation. Bank holds her interest as guarantor. Amount $300 plus processing fees. The numbers didn't matter. What mattered was the noose. 3 legal documents, each one tightening. Sheriff Yates shifted his weight. Wouldn't look at Jake. His gun belt creaked in the silence. So here's how this resolves, Pritchard said. He folded his hands. Reasonable, gentle. The voice of a man offering mercy. Miss Wade returns with me. I'll employ her as household staff. Her debt forgives yours. Your note extends to its original term. Everyone walks away whole. Returns with you, Jake said flatly. For her own protection, and yours. Pritchard's smile was all teeth. Alternative is foreclosure. Sheriff evicts you in 30 days. You lose the ranch, your children lose their home, all because you couldn't control your charitable impulses. Ellie gripped the porch rail. Her knuckles went white. She's not property, Jake said. No, she's a debt. Pritchard gathered his papers. 30 days, Thornhill. Return the woman to her lawful contract holder, that's me, as her passage guarantor, or lose everything. Law's the law, even out here. He mounted his horse, looked down at them both. Choose wisely. The 3 riders left. Dust rose in their wake, hung in the air like judgment. Jake stood there. The documents lay on the rail, official and final. His hands shook, not from fear, from rage so cold it burned. Inside, through the window, Sam and Mary watched. Their faces were pale, old enough to understand. Their home, their future, everything their mother died giving them. And here was Jake, one woman in the ground and another standing beside him, and both of them pulling him in directions that ended in loss. Ellie touched his arm. I'll go. No. Oh, Jake, your children. No, he turned to her. I've lost enough. I'm not losing this. Oh, you'll lose them. Her voice broke. You'll lose Sam and Mary. Their home, everything. 30 days. The words sat between them like a gravestone waiting to be carved. Dawn came cool, the only mercy July offered. Jake was already up, hadn't slept. Spent the night staring at those 3 documents, adding numbers that didn't add, trying to find a way through. That didn't exist. He walked out to the well. The windmill creaked its morning greeting, stars were fading. The sky bled from black to deep blue to the pale gray that promised another brutal day. The tin dipper hung on its hook, his father's dipper. Dented from decades of use, handle worn smooth as river stone. Jake took it down, felt the weight of ritual and memory. He lowered the bucket, the rope sang through the pulley. Water sloshed below, precious, life-giving. When he hauled it up, the bucket dripped dark spots in the dust. He filled the dipper, drank. Cold well water, tasting of minerals and depth. First drink of the day. His father's tradition. Then his. Now, show me? Ellie stood on the porch. She'd wrapped a shawl around her shoulders against the morning chill. Her hair was loose, not yet pinned, made her look younger, vulnerable. Jake gestured her over. She came barefoot through the dust, stood beside him and the well. My father started it, Jake said. His father before that. First water of the day, you share it. Reminds you what matters, what keeps you alive. He filled the dipper again. Out here, a man who hoards water dies alone. A man who shares it survives. He offered her the dipper. Ellie took it. Their fingers brushed. She drank, closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had shifted. Understanding, maybe, or acceptance. Your turn, Jake said. He showed her how to lower the bucket, how to judge the weight when it filled, how to haul it up, hand over hand, steady and sure. She was stronger now. 3 weeks of regular food and rest had put flesh back on her bones. She filled the dipper, handed it to him. Jake drank. The water tasted the same. But the act, her hands to his, felt different, intimate. The kind of intimacy that had nothing to do with bodies and everything to do with trust. A sound from the house. They turned. Sam stood in the doorway, watching. His face was complicated. Hurt and anger and something else. Something like longing. Mary squeezed past him, ran across the yard, nightgown flapping. Are we doing Papa's water thing? If you want, Jake said. Mary took the dipper from him, drank her share, handed it to Sam. The boy didn't move at first. The battle played across his face. This was his mother's place, his family's ritual. And here was a stranger standing where Rebecca should stand. But Mary was looking at him. And Papa. And Ellie, who'd saved Mary from the snake, who'd mended his shirts, who stood there waiting for him to decide what kind of man he'd become. Sam walked over, took the dipper, drank. Jake's hand covered Ellie's on the dipper handle when she reached for it again. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Not words, deeper than words. Water's for sharing when drought comes, Whomee said quietly. That's how we survive. That afternoon, while the children did chores, Ellie spread papers across the kitchen table. Every document she'd brought, every scrap she'd kept. Jake watched her work. She organized them like a general planning battle. Receipts in one pile, letters in another. The advertisement. The correspondence with J. Thornhill. You always this particular? He asked. My father died in debtor's prison. She didn't look up. Her hands kept moving, sorting, stacking. They said he owed money, $600 for supplies he never received. Said he'd lost the paperwork proving payment. After he died, my mother and I found every receipt he'd ever been given. Found proof he'd paid in full. Twice over, actually. What happened? Nothing. Dead man can't contest debt. Prison keeper sold his body to medical school for $5. Used it to offset housing costs. Her voice was flat, factual. The way people talk about old pain that never quite heals. I learned then, you keep everything, every scrap of paper, because men with power rewrite history if you let them. She pulled out the advertisement, laid it next to a letter, then another, 9 letters total. What are those? Jake leaned closer. Other women. I found them through the Matrimonial Times. There's a section where brides write to each other, share advice, warn each other about bad situations. She touched each letter. We wrote for months. They were all traveling to Texas. Different towns, different men, but all around the same time. Spring and fall of 76, spring of 77. Jake's gut tightened. And? They stopped writing, all of them. I kept sending letters. Nothing came back. I thought maybe they'd found happiness. Forgotten about lonely women back east. She met his eyes. Now I think maybe they just ran out of time. Jake picked up one letter. The handwriting was feminine, careful. My intended says he has land and water. Says he'll treat me well. I'm hopeful, Eleanor. For the first time in years, I'm hopeful. What were their names? Clara, Margaret, Susan, Elizabeth, Anne. Ellie recited them like prayer. 5 that I knew. 4 more I'd heard about through the Times. 9 women, plus Ellie made 10. Dutch said 2 was buried near Redemption Flats. That left 7 unaccounted for. Ellie pulled out a receipt from her stack. Bank receipt for her passage fee. $85 paid to J. Thornhill account, care of Pritchard Trust and Lending. Then she pulled out Jake's supply receipt from 2 days ago, the one he'd signed at Hoffman's store. She laid them side by side. Jake stared. His signature was rough, barely legible. Letters, cramped together like they were fighting for space. The scrawl of a man who'd learned to write late and practiced little. The signature on her receipt was elegant, educated, loops and flourishes. The hand of someone who'd spent years with pen and ink. Not your writing, Ellie said. Not my writing, Jake confirmed. She pulled out another document. The original advertisement from the Matrimonial Times. The same elegant signature. J. Thornhill. I noticed something else. She reached into her bodice, pulled out one more paper. This is the foreclosure notice Pritchard left yesterday. She unfolded it, pointed to Pritchard's signature at the bottom. County Bank President. The signature was identical to the one on Jake's letter. Same flourishes, same loops, same educated hand. He didn't just forge your name, Ellie said. He used his own handwriting. He got sloppy. Jake felt something like hope spark in his chest. Can you prove it? If we can get a sample of his writing. Something official. Something that can't be disputed. She looked at him. Storekeeper keeps ledgers, doesn't he? Bank president has to sign for credit lines? Smart woman. Dangerous woman. Jake touched her hand. You're not going anywhere. Not with him. Not with anyone. We're going to fight this. Your children. My children need to see their father do right. Even when it's hard. He squeezed her fingers. Especially when it's hard. Outside, thunder rumbled. False promise again. The sky liked to threaten rain. It had no intention of delivering. But this time, Jake thought maybe the storm was coming after all. Ellie spread 9 letters on the table. 9 women who'd stopped writing. These are from other women. We wrote each other through the Matrimonial Times. They stopped answering in 76 and 77. Jake looked at them. 9 voices silenced. 9 lives ended. And Ellie, 10, still breathing, still fighting. Then we speak for them too, he said. 2 days later, flowers arrived, expensive ones. Roses that had no business surviving in West Texas heat. Someone paid good money to have them shipped from Dallas. The boy from the general store delivered them, looked embarrassed, set them on the porch, and left fast. Mary picked up the card. Read it aloud before anyone could stop her. A woman of your refinement deserves better than drought and children. S.P. Ellie took the card. Read it again. Her face went pale, then red. Sam watched her. What's it mean? It means, Ellie said slowly, Mr. Pritchard thinks I can be bought, and she carried the flowers inside. Jake followed. Watched her open the stove, still hot from morning cooking, smelling of ash and burned coffee, and feed the roses in one by one. They blackened and curled. The sweet smell turned acrid. Feels good, she said. An hour later, Pritchard himself rode up, alone this time, confident. He tied his horse, climbed the porch steps like he owned them. Jake met him at the door, didn't invite him in. Miss Wade received my gift. Pritchard's smile was all teeth. She did? Thoughtful of me, wouldn't you say? Woman in her position needs to know she has options. He looked past Jake, found Ellie standing in the kitchen doorway. Miss Wade, a word? Say what you need to say right here, Jake said. Pritchard's smile thinned. Very well. I'm prepared to make this situation disappear. No foreclosure, no lien. Your note extends to its original term. All I ask is that Miss Wade accept employment in my household. Housekeeper position, respectable, well paid, everyone saves face. The words sounded reasonable. The eyes told a different story. I can make your life very comfortable, Pritchard continued, speaking directly to Ellie now. You'd have your own room, security, no longer dependent on the charity of a struggling rancher. He glanced at the children visible through the window. No longer a burden on motherless children. Ellie walked forward, stood beside Jake. Her voice was steady. He don't want a housekeeper. He wants ownership. Same thing he wanted when he left me at that well to die. Pritchard's mask slipped. Just for a moment. Something cold and ugly showed through. Careful with accusations, Miss Wade. Words like that could be considered slander. Truth ain't slander, Jake said. Truth, Pritchard laughed. Bitter sound. Truth is, you're harboring a woman of questionable morals. Truth is, your children are being corrupted. Truth is, this town sees what you've become. He leaned closer. 28 days left, Thornhill. I've been patient, but patience runs out. He left. His horse's hooves kicked up dust that settled on the porch like ash. Ellie's hands were shaking. I should go, before he destroys you. He don't get to destroy anything, Jake said. Not you, not us. But doubt lived in both their eyes. Father Brennan came that evening. The old circuit preacher rode in on a mule that looked as tired as he did. But his eyes were sharp, alert, the eyes of a man who'd found something. Dutch Cooper followed 20 minutes later. His horse was lathered. He'd ridden hard. They gathered in Jake's kitchen. Lamplight flickered. Outside, cicadas sang their endless summer song. "I did what you asked," Brennan said. He pulled papers from his saddlebag. Death certificates, yellowed. Official. 2 women. Buried them myself in '76, both young. Both died of heat stroke, according to Sheriff Yates. Found in the desert. No family to claim them. And he laid the certificates on the table. The names jumped out. Clara Whitmore. Margaret Sullivan. Ellie gasped. Grabbed her letters. Found 2 that matched the names. "They wrote to me. They were coming here. Her voice broke. "They're dead." "Not just them," Dutch said. He set something heavy on the table. A trunk. Travel trunk, with brass corners and a broken latch. It smelled of dust and depot storage and secrets. "Where'd you get that?" Jake asked. "Railroad depot. Been sitting in back storage for 2 years. Clerk said some fancy man paid him $15 to lose it. Forget it existed." Dutch's jaw worked. Clerk's conscience finally caught up with him. "When I started asking questions about missing brides," he remembered. Ellie's hands trembled as she opened the trunk. Inside, clothes, a Bible, photographs, and underneath, wrapped in oilcloth, papers, letters, 11 of them, each one addressed to a different woman, each one promising marriage and security and a future worth building, each one signed in that same elegant hand, J. Thornhill. But it wasn't just the letters. There was a ledger, accounts payable, passage fees collected, $85. $85. $85, 11 entries, total collected, $935. At the bottom, in that same elegant script, investment recovered through land acquisition, ROI, 847%. Women reduced to numbers, lives reduced to profit margins. Ellie spread the letters across the table. 11 women, 11 promises. 2 graves Father Brennan knew about, 9 more nobody had asked after. "He's been doing this for years," Brennan said. His voice shook with fury and guilt. "I buried 2 of them. 2, and I never asked why, never questioned. Just did my job and collected my fee and moved on to the next town." He looked at his hands like they were covered in blood. "I should have known, should have asked." "You're asking now," Jake said. Dutch laid out a map, survey of properties around Jake's land, marked each foreclosed parcel. Every one of these was owned by a man expecting a bride. Every one of them had water rights or access to your well. Pritchard collected passage fees from desperate women, left them to die, used their deaths to ruin the men's reputations, foreclosed when their credit failed. 11 properties, Ellie whispered. She touched each letter like they were gravestones. 11 women. 11 we know about, Brennan corrected grimly. The lamp flickered, cast shadows that danced across the evidence spread before them. Proof, finally, undeniable. But Dutch's face was grave. "Problem is, Jake, this proves Pritchard's a murderer. But it don't prove you didn't write that advertisement. Court won't care about dead brides if they think you're part of the scheme." "The handwriting," Ellie said. "We can prove. We need more," Jake said. "We need something that ties him directly, something that can't be explained away." They stared at the evidence. So close, but not close enough. Outside, thunder rumbled. Closer this time. The smell of rain drifted through the open window. Not much. Maybe not at all. But more than false promise. Maybe the storm was finally coming. Night before the town meeting. 26 days left on Pritchard's deadline. The evidence sat on the table like a pile of bones. Real, but not enough. Not yet. Jake found Ellie packing. She had her few belongings laid out on the bed, the dress Mary had given her, the shawl, the papers. Always the papers. Her hands moved with mechanical precision. Folding, stacking, preparing to leave. "What are you doing?" Jake's voice came rougher than he meant. "What I should have done days ago." She didn't look at him. "Tomorrow, I'll take passage money from the town fund. Go back east. You fight Pritchard alone. Without me here, he's got no leverage." "That's not. It's the only way, Jake." Now she looked at him. Her eyes were dry, past tears. "Tommy and Mary deserve their home. They lost their mother. They can't lose everything else because you—" She stopped, swallowed. "Because you were kind to a stranger. You're not a stranger anymore." "I'm still a burden," her voice cracked. "I'm still the reason your children might end up homeless." Jake wanted to argue. Couldn't find words that weren't selfish. What kind of father chose a woman over his children's security? What kind of man let pride destroy everything his wife died to give them? He left her packing. Went outside. The stars were hard and bright. The night air carried the smell of dust and distant creosote. Somewhere a coyote howled. He sat on the porch step, put his face in his hands. First time he'd prayed in 4 years, the words came bitter. "God, I buried my wife. Buried my heart with her. You sent Ellie, and I'm alive again. Now you're taking her. What kind of mercy is this? Silence. Cold wind. No answers. The door opened behind him, small footsteps. Mary climbed into his lap, 8 years old and already too wise. Papa, is Ellie leaving? Maybe. Because of the bad man? Because of me. Because I can't... His voice broke. Because I can't figure out how to keep everyone safe. Mary was quiet for a long time. Then, Mama used to say, doing right is hard. That's how you know it's right. 'Cause easy things don't cost nothing. Jake held his daughter. She smelled like soap in childhood. Innocent, trusting, depending on him to be better than his doubt. The door slammed. Sam. He'd been listening from inside. Now he stood there, face twisted with fury and fear and hurt. You're choosing her over us. Not a question, an accusation. Sam, Mama died for us. The boy's voice cracked high. She died giving us life, and you're throwing us away for a stranger. For some woman who showed up and ruined everything. That's not... It is. Sam was crying now. Angry tears, the kind that come from breaking. We were fine. We were managing. Then she came, and now we're losing the ranch, losing everything. Jake stood. Mary slipped from his lap. Son, listen. No. Sam backed away. You listen. You're choosing her, a woman you met a month ago, over us, over Mama's memory, over everything we are. His voice went ragged. Mama died for us, and you don't even care. The words hung there, cruel, true, unbearable, silence. Then Mary spoke, small voice in the dark. Mama would have helped her too. Sam turned on her. What? Mama would have helped Miss Ellie. She always helped people. Remember when Mrs. Cooper was sick? Mama took food every day for a month. Remember when the Hendersons' barn burned? Mama sewed them new clothes. Mary's chin trembled, but her voice stayed steady. Mama would have taken Miss Ellie in, and she'd want Papa to do right, even when it's hard. Sam stared at his sister, at his father. The fight drained out of him, leaving him hollow. He made a sound, half sob, half rage, and ran to his room. They heard the door slam, heard him moving inside, then silence. An hour later, Sam emerged. His eyes were red. He went to the mantel, placed something there with careful precision. The photograph. His mother's photograph. The one he'd hidden under his mattress for weeks. But next to it, he set something else. The sketch Ellie had drawn of Mary. She'd done it one afternoon, casual, just to make the girl smile. Sam had kept it. Now both images stood side by side on the mantel. Rebecca Thornhill, Eleanor Wade. Two women, different, both real. Sam looked at his father. I don't want to love her. Feels like forgetting Mama. You can love both, Jake said quietly. Love ain't pie. Don't run out because you cut another slice. Does it always hurt this much? The good kind does. Sam nodded, didn't smile. But something had shifted, some burden shared instead of carried alone. Dawn brought riders. Father Brennan, Dutch Cooper, behind them 3 more. The storekeeper's wife, Mrs. Hoffman, Doc Patterson, a rancher named Mills whose land bordered Pritchard's acquisitions. They gathered in Jake's yard, horses stamping, morning birds singing like the world wasn't ending. Brennan spoke first. Called an emergency town meeting, tonight, church. I'm invoking my right as circuit minister. Pritchard can't stop it. What changed? Jake asked. I did. Mrs. Hoffman stepped forward. She smelled of flour and determination. I keep the store ledgers. Every credit line goes through me for bookkeeping. I seen Pritchard's signature 100 times. She pulled a ledger from her bag. It matches the advertisement. Exact. I can testify to it. Doc Patterson cleared his throat. I treated 2 women in '76 for heat stroke. Both died. Both had the same symptoms. Prolonged dehydration, not sudden exposure. Days without water, not hours. Never sat right with me. But Sheriff Yates said they were just careless travelers. Mills spat tobacco juice. Pritchard tried buying my land 3 times. Last time he mentioned I might want to reconsider. Said unfortunate things happen to stubborn men. Said it with a smile. Dutch laid out the trunk evidence. The letters, the ledger, the death certificates. This is what we got. This is what we show. Tonight. Whole town needs to see. Ellie came out on the porch. Her bag was still packed inside. But she'd stopped moving toward the door. You'll need me to testify, she said. You'll be putting yourself in front of them, Jake said. All their judgment, all their hate. I know. Her jaw set. But I'm not running anymore. Those other women can't speak. I can. I will. Thunder rolled across the sky. Real thunder. Not the false promise that had been teasing for weeks. The smell of rain drifted on the wind. Petrichor, sweet and sharp, the smell of ending drought. Dark clouds piled on the horizon. Coming closer. Brennan looked up, smiled grimly. God's timing ain't never been subtle. They spent the day preparing, organizing evidence, planning testimony. When evening came, they loaded everything into Dutch's wagon. The trunk, the letters, the ledger, the proof. Sam helped load it, careful with each piece. Mary carried the flowers, wildflowers she'd picked, to lay on the church steps for the women who'd never made it home. Jake found Ellie standing by the well. She held the tin dipper, turned it in her hands like she was memorizing the weight. "You bringing that?" he asked. "I am." She met his eyes. "They left me with that dipper 6 feet away. Tonight, they'll see me hold it. They'll understand what kind of man does that, what kind of man Silas Pritchard really is." The first raindrops began to fall, sparse, tentative, testing whether the earth would accept them. Jake took her hand. "Whatever happens, we face it together," Ellie finished. The storm was coming. Finally, truly, and they would meet it standing. The church was packed. 42 people, crammed into pews, meant for 40. They'd come from homesteads 20 miles out. Word had spread the way it does in small places, whispers and riders in the sense that something was ending, or beginning, or both. Rain hammered the tin roof. Started slow, then built to a drumming that made the walls shake. 4 months without a drop. Now, the sky opened like God had been saving it all for this moment. Father Brennan stood at the pulpit. His face was carved from years of hard truth and harder ground. He didn't smile, didn't soften it. "We're here because lies been told. Because women died and nobody asked why. Because money corrupted what should have been law." His voice cut through the rain sound. "Tonight, we make it right, or we prove this town's name is a lie." Silas Pritchard sat in the front pew, calm, composed. He'd worn his best suit, black wool that had to be sweltering in the heat. Sheriff Yates sat beside him. 3 ranchers who owed Pritchard money, 2 bank clerks, the bot men showing their loyalty. Jake sat in back with Ellie. Dutch and the children flanked them. Sam's jaw was tight. Mary held Ellie's hand like she was afraid someone might take her. Pritchard stood, smoothed his jacket, walked to the front like he owned the floorboards. "This is unfortunate," he began, voice measured, reasonable. "I understand tensions are high, but facts are facts. Mr. Thornhill placed an advertisement for a mail-order bride. Miss Wade responded. The arrangement failed. Now he seeks to avoid his obligations through slander and theatrics. He produced documents, held them high so everyone could see. Advertisement filed with the Matrimonial Times. Mr. Thornhill's signature, his specific mention of water rights." He laid it on the pulpit. "Passage contract. $85 paid through my bank as intermediary. Standard practice." Another document. Miss Wade's sworn statement that she came here expecting marriage based on this advertisement. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Williams, the Reverend's wife, nodded approval. Judge Pickett, who handled county disputes, leaned forward. "Now, Mr. Thornhill claims he didn't write this." Pritchard's eyebrow raised. "Convenient, but I have 12 witnesses who'll testify to Mr. Thornhill's predatory behavior, harboring an unmarried woman, exposing his children to moral corruption." He gestured to Sheriff Yates. "The law is clear. He owes Miss Wade compensation. He's defaulted on bank obligations. Foreclosure is the only remedy." The rain intensified. Thunder cracked close enough to rattle the windows. Brennan's voice cut through. "You done?" "I believe the facts speak for themselves." "Good, because we got some facts of our own." Brennan nodded to Dutch. The blacksmith stood, carried the trunk to the front, set it down with a thud that echoed. The brass corners gleamed in lamplight. The broken latch hung useless. "Found this at the railroad depot," Dutch said. "Been sitting in storage for 2 years. Clerk said a fancy man paid him $15 to lose it, to forget it existed." He looked at Pritchard. "That fancy man described looked a lot like you." Pritchard's smile didn't waver. "I've never seen that trunk in my life." Dutch opened it, started pulling out letters. 1, 2, 5, 10, 11. Laid them across the pulpit like a card dealer showing his hand. 11 women, all answering advertisements for J. Thornhill, all promising marriage and security, all signed with the same hand. He held up the first letter, then the advertisement from Ellie's papers. Same handwriting, same signature, 11 times. The crowd shifted. Whispers turned to murmurs. "There's more." Dutch pulled out the ledger. Account book, passage fees collected, $85. 11 times. Total, $935. He read the bottom line. Investment recovered through land acquisition, ROI, 847%. The church went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause. Pritchard stood. "This is fabrication. Anyone could have written." "Anyone with your handwriting?" Mrs. Hoffman rose from her pew. The storekeeper's wife. Practical woman, honest woman. She carried the store ledger, thick, worn, official. I keep the books for every credit line in this town. Have for 12 years. Every transaction crosses my desk. I know every signature. She walked to the pulpit, opened the ledger, pointed to Pritchard's signature on a dozen credit authorizations. Then she laid the advertisement beside it. That's Silas Pritchard's hand. Exact same loops. Same flourish on the capital T. Same slant. She looked at him. I seen you sign documents 1,000 times. This is yours. The crowd erupted, voices rising, chairs scraping. Pritchard's mask cracked. She's mistaken. The similarity is, I buried 2 of them. Father Brennan's voice silenced everyone. 2 women, 1876, both young, both supposedly died of heat stroke, both found in the desert with no family to claim them. He held up death certificates. Clara Whitmore, Margaret Sullivan, Sheriff Yates signed both death certificates, said they were careless travelers. Doc Patterson stood. I treated them before they died. Both had symptoms of prolonged dehydration. Days without water, not sudden exposure. Never sat right with me, but I trusted the sheriff's judgment. You trusted wrong? Brennan said flatly. He looked at the crowd. 2 graves I know about. 9 more letters in that trunk. 9 more women who stopped writing home. How many graves we ain't found yet? Judge Pickett stood. This is serious accusation. You're saying, I'm saying Silas Pritchard murdered 11 women for profit. Brennan's voice carried steel. Lured them with fake advertisements, collected their passage fees, left them in the desert to die, used their deaths to ruin men's reputations and foreclose on their land. Pritchard laughed. High, brittle. This is absurd. You have no proof. Let her speak. Jake stood, looked at Ellie. Tell them. Ellie rose. She carried the tin dipper, the one from the well, dented, real. She walked to the front. Rain drummed harder. Her footsteps echoed. She faced the crowd. 42 people who judged her, whispered about her, called her fallen. 3 days, she said. Her voice was rough but steady. 3 days without water. The dipper was right there. She held it up. 6 feet away, I could see it, see the sunlight on the metal, but I couldn't reach it. Whoever left me there knew that. Knew I'd die looking at salvation I couldn't touch. She set the dipper on the pulpit. The metal rang against wood. I paid $85. Every cent I had. My father died in debtor's prison. My mother's in a poorhouse. I answered an advertisement because I had nothing left to lose. She pulled out the letters. I wasn't the only one. We wrote to each other, warned each other, gave each other hope. 10 women, all traveling to Texas, all expecting Jay Thornhill. She looked at Pritchard. But Jay, Thornhill never existed. You created him, used his name to collect fees, used his reputation to ruin men when your brides died. I live because Jake Thornhill found me, because he's decent, because he gave me water you tried to deny. Mrs. Hoffman stepped beside her. That signature is Silas Pritchard's. I'll swear it in any court. Doc Patterson joined them. Those women died of murder, not heat stroke. I'll testify. Dutch stood with them. Those properties were stolen through fraud. Father Brennan raised his voice. Who believes Silas Pritchard's claim? Hands rose. 12 of them. Pritchard's men, the bought ones. Sheriff Yates, the ranchers in debt, the bank clerks. Who stands with Jake Thornhill? Silence. Terrible silence. Then Sam stood, 11 years old, terrified. I stand with my papa. Mary stood. Me too. Mrs. Hoffman's hand went up, then Doc Patterson's. Judge Pickett stood slowly, face grave. Evidence is damning. I stand with Thornhill. Mills, the neighboring rancher. I stand with Jake. 1 by 1, 15, 20, 28 hands, the majority. Pritchard's face went white, then red. You'll all regret this. I have lawyers. You have nothing. Brennan's voice cut like judgment. You're done here. Sheriff Yates stood, unbuckled his gun belt, set it on the pew. I'm done being bought. He walked out into the rain. Pritchard turned on them all, spitting fury. You think this ends it? I'll sue every one of you. I'll bury this town in legal. Son. Brennan's voice stopped him. We already regretted believing you. Now we're fixing that mistake. Pritchard stared at them, at the evidence, at the community that had turned. Then he did the only thing left. He ran, pushed through the crowd, out the door, into the storm. His horse's hooves splashed through mud, faded into rain and thunder. Gone. The rain kept falling. Soaked through clothes, turned dust to mud, filled the dry creek beds with rushing water that sang like salvation. 4 months of drought ended in one night. The church emptied slow. People lingered, wanted to apologize, wanted to make things right. Mrs. Hoffman touched Ellie's arm. I'm sorry, I judged you wrong. And we all did, Judge Pickett said. But wrong can be made right. I'll file paperwork tomorrow. Your foreclosure notice is void. Your deed's secure, Jake. Water rights confirmed. Doc Patterson shook Jake's hand. Need anything, you ask? One by one they came, offered help, offered shame, offered the beginning of something like redemption. Mary handed her wildflowers to Father Brennan. For the ladies who didn't make it home. The old preacher took them. His eyes were wet. I'll plant them on their graves. Make sure they're remembered. Sam stood apart, watching. Finally he walked to Ellie, looked at her for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said, for what I said, for how I... His voice broke. You saved Mary. You stood up when it was hard. That's what Mama would have done. Ellie knelt, met his eyes. Your mama was your mama. Nobody can replace her. I'm not trying to. I'm just... She searched for words. I'm just Ellie, if that's enough. Sam nodded, couldn't speak, turned away before the tears came. The crowd dispersed into rain and darkness, horses splashing, wagons creaking, voices calling goodnight with something like hope in them. Jake stood on the church steps with Ellie. The rain soaked them both, cold and clean and new. You're free, he said. Pritchard's gone. Foreclosure's lifted. You can take passage money, go back east, back to Boston. Back to what? Ellie asked. My father's dead. My mother's in a poorhouse. I got no trade that'll keep me fed. No prospects. She looked at him. Rain streamed down her face. I came here to build something. Reckon I'll stay and build it right. You don't owe me. I know. She stepped closer. That's why I'm staying. Not because I owe you. Because I choose you. Choose Sam and Mary. Choose the morning water ritual and the mended shirts and the... Her voice caught. The family. I choose this. Jake touched her face. Water dripped from her chin. You sure? I'm sure. Father Brennan cleared his throat, still standing in the church doorway. Hate to interrupt, but seems to me you two need a proper wedding. Not a contract, not an obligation, a choice. Now? Jake asked. Why wait? You got witnesses? He gestured to Dutch, still loading the trunk into his wagon, to Mrs. Hoffman, sheltering under the church overhang. To Judge Pickett, writing notes for tomorrow's paperwork. Sunrise? Ellie said. I want sunrise. Want to start this right. Brennan smiled. Sunrise it is. They rode home through rain that felt like baptism. The children were soaked and shivering, but nobody complained. The land drank deep. The well would rise. The creek beds would run. Everything was changing. Everything was beginning. Sam put his horse away, came into the house, dripping, went straight to the mantel, looked at the two photographs, his mother, and the sketch of Mary that Ellie had drawn. He touched his mother's frame. I love you, Mama. Always will. Then he picked up the sketch, looked at it, set it back down with care. Mary watched him. You okay? Yeah. He looked at his sister. Yeah, I think I am. Dawn came soft. The rain had gentled to mist. The sky bled from black to gray to the pale gold that promised a new day. Jake woke before anyone, walked to the well. The ground was muddy. The windmill dripped. Everything smelled of wet earth and possibility. He lowered the bucket. It splashed into water 6 inches higher than yesterday. Miracle. Small. Real. He filled the tin dipper. Waited. Footsteps behind him. Ellie, wrapped in a shawl. Hair loose. Beautiful in the gray light. Morning, she said. Morning. He handed her the dipper. She drank. Handed it back. Their ritual. Beginning again. Sam and Mary came out. Joined them without asking. 4 of them around the well. Sharing water. Sharing morning. Sharing the beginning of whatever they were becoming. Ready? Jake asked Ellie. Ready. They walked to the church. Father Brennan waited on the steps. Dutch stood witness. Mrs. Hoffman had brought wildflowers, real ones, growing after the rain. Judge Pickett carried his Bible. The ceremony was simple. No grand words, no promises that couldn't be kept. Do you, Eleanor Wade, take this man? I do. Do you, Jacob Thornhill, take this woman? I do. Then, by the authority given me by God and common sense, I declare you married. May you build something worth keeping. They kissed, gentle, real. The beginning of a promise they'd make good on one day at a time. Sam and Mary stood beside them. Part of it, part of the choosing. Can we go home now? Mary asked. I'm hungry. Everyone laughed. The sound carried across wet grass and dripping trees and land that was learning how to live again. The next morning, Jake woke before dawn. Old habit, good habit. He walked to the well, started the ritual. But this time, he wasn't alone. Ellie came out, then Sam, then Mary. 4 of them, family. Built the hard way, the only way that lasts. Jake lowered the bucket, drew water, filled the tin dipper, the old one, his father's, dented and worn and honest. He drank, passed it to Ellie. She drank, passed it to Sam. Sam drank, passed it to Mary. Mary drank, handed it back to Jake. Circle complete. The sun broke the horizon. Gold light spilled across wet earth. The creek ran full. The garden Ellie had planted yesterday would grow. The cattle would drink. The land would remember how to forgive. Papa? Mary looked up at him. Are we going to be okay? Jake looked at his children, at Ellie, at the well that had saved them all. Yeah, baby, we're going to be okay. Sam set his hand on the well's edge. What do we do now? Now? Jake smiled. Now we build, one day at a time, one choice at a time. That's how it works. Ellie's hand found his, squeezed. Together. Together, he agreed. The morning bird sang, the windmill turned. Water rose from depths that had been there all along, just waiting to be drawn up and shared. Jake thought about Pritchard, about the 11 women who'd died, about how close Ellie had come to being number 12. But she'd lived, and living, she'd brought them all back from their own kind of drought, not the kind that killed the land, the kind that killed the heart. Some families are born, some are built. The built ones got stronger seams. Sam moved closer to Ellie, not touching, just near, accepting in his own time, his own way. Mary leaned against her. Tell me a story, Mama Ellie. Ellie looked at Jake. He nodded. Once there was a woman, Ellie began, who got lost in the desert, and a man who found her, and 2 children who taught them both what family really means. That's us, Mary said. That's us, Ellie agreed. The sun climbed higher, the day stretched ahead, full of work and heat and the endless labor of making a life worth living. But they had water. They had each other. They had choice. Everything else they'd figure out as they went. Jake looked at the 3 people standing with him, his son, his daughter, his wife, built from drought and desperation and the stubborn decision to do right even when it cost everything. Water's for sharing when drought comes, and he said quietly. That's how we survive. That's how we survive? Ellie echoed. They stood there as morning broke full and bright. 4 tin cups would hang by the well tomorrow. Sam had already started carving smaller ones for him and Mary. 4 voices sharing water, 4 hearts learning to beat together. The drought of 1878 had killed a lot of things, but it had grown something too. Something that knew thirst, knew mercy, knew the difference between owning and loving. That difference? That was worth more than all the water rights in Texas. September came. The rain kept coming too, gentle and regular, like the land was remembering how to breathe. The well rose 6 inches. The creek ran steady. Grass grew green where it had been brown since spring. Jake Thornhill learned what his daddy taught him was right. Water's for sharing when drought comes. Turns out, so's mercy. Ellie's garden took root where the dried riverbed used to mock them. She planted vegetables and herbs, practical things that fed bodies and healed them. Mary helped, called it their medicine patch. Sam built a fence around it to keep the cattle out. Didn't say much, but his hands spoke for him. They heard Pritchard tried the same scheme in Colorado. They say it didn't work there either. Truth's got a way of traveling faster than lies once it gets moving. Man can only run so far before his past catches up, and Silas Pritchard's past had long legs and sharp teeth. Father Brennan planted wildflowers on 11 graves. Some had markers now, some didn't, but they were remembered. That's what mattered. Being remembered means you weren't wasted. Means your life, however it ended, had weight. 4 tin cups hung by the Thornhill well now. Sam carved the small ones himself, one for him, one for Mary. Every morning, same ritual, water passing hand to hand. Family built the hard way, with choosing and forgiving and the daily decision to show up. The drought of 1878 killed a lot of things. Cattle and hope and 11 women whose names most folks never knew. But it grew something too, something stubborn, something that understood thirst and mercy and the difference between owning and loving. That difference, that's the only difference that matters. When the sun goes down and you got to look yourself in the mirror, some debts are paid in water, some in blood, some in the quiet decision to stand up when standing's hard. Jake Thornhill stood, Ellie Wade stood with him, and together they taught their children what strength really looks like. Not loud, not violent, just steady, like water rising in a well, like rain after drought, like morning coming, whether you're ready or not. That's the only kind of strength that lasts.